Hey folks, Masakox here. Now, I did a little bit of research using my analytical jiggery-pokery tools that I have on YouTube and found out that some of you out there are very much of the opinion of searching for Android 21 stuff. I know why, you saucy chappies you. However, I shall not be telling you to stop it, because on this occasion, it's helped me. Let's set the scene as to how 21's influence could spell Goku's future. And if you like this idea, why don't you like this video, subscribe for more content, and also maybe perhaps leave a cheeky super thanks while you're at it? Thank you. In any case, in this world, Goku landed somewhere differently. And unlike our timeline where he landed at Capsule Corp, however, we are immediately into a quandary. You see, Android 21's history's muddled, to say the least. If you look at the Kakarot games, 21 actually worked for Capsule Corp, known as the female researcher, which helped develop the gravity room for Vegeta in the 3-year time skip before the Android saga in the game. Does that mean that 21 would have been human when Goku landed on Earth? Well, yeah. So what are you gonna do here to make this work? Well, I'm gonna combine the Kakarot stuff with what we have in FighterZ and other things to make a hybrid story. Sort of like what we did in part 0 of the Gine story. You can check out the full story video up here. Okay, now we've got some of the groundwork down, I can get to the meat of this video. It's age 737. Goku has landed on Earth and been found by the Red Ribbon researchers in one of their local depots. The Saiyan pod created a massive crater amongst the parked vehicles and equipment, and naturally, it would have angered Commander Red when he found out about it, that some of his precious tools and stuff had been destroyed. Then again, when he finds out that there has been something rather interesting coming his way, something developing, that the thing that crashed wasn't just some meteorite, it was some kind of transport vessel that had never before been seen on Earth. He sends out his best scientists to investigate because of it, including Dr Gero and the female researcher, who we will name, for the sake of brevity and in keeping with 17 and 18's human monikers, Hema, after the red crystal hematite, because red hair. So just be aware before we proceed that this is more of a placeholder name rather than us going all fanficky on you. I just think me saying the female researcher time and time again would get a little bit monotonous. Gero and Hema are on the ground first and foremost to check out the pod and find a way to bring it back to the former's lab in Red Ribbon main headquarters. At first, Gero is rather excited to see what is going on with this thing. Is it some kind of treasure? Some sort of vehicle? If so, what could be inside? Hema wasn't so sure about this though. At this point in the story, she was a nervous individual about new tech, and only worked with Red Ribbon at the moment out of necessity. This playing off of her true persona in the game, where she is much more good-natured than you think. To explain why she's working for Red Ribbon then, she probably had no luck finding work until she met Gero, who promptly took a liking to her and, well, you know, they had a kid, Gero, our human Android 16. I can imagine there's quite the age gap between her and Gero, but their connection and attachment with Gero meant that she was kinda stuck here with him. Either way, she didn't like these wild ideas that Gero would normally have, and she wouldn't like what he was about to cook up later on once they got the pod back to the lab. After hours of figuring out the codes and locks on the pod, they were able to open up the pod to reveal a baby? Immediately, Hema felt a pang of apprehension. This child was so human-like. For all intents and purposes, it may as well have been one. Put that child in a cot in the hospital, you couldn't tell the difference, other than the tail, but also, there were beast kids out there and beast men, so a tail on a human child? That was relatively small fry. She got closer to the sleeping babe and felt warmth toward it, as well as a reassuring aura. However, that was until the little Kakarot woke up. When he did, he lashed out in panic at the unfamiliar environment and attacked Hema. Well, I say attacked, more like he bowled her over whilst on top of her. She tried to calm him down, which was working somewhat. Her soothing voice and calm nature was enough to start to quell Kakarot's fear response. But Gero was not swayed. He immediately ran over and shocked the baby to stop. Cattle prod. But this is a Saiyan Gero. It's going to take more than one of those to take him down. But in response, The baby bit down on Hima's hand and she let out a shriek of pain. With a few more cattle prods though, Kakarot was knocked out cold again. Gero did not ask Hima whether she was alright. He was more focused on the alien baby. Fascinating. He then motioned for some of the guards to prepare his main laboratory for a deep dive as to the child's makeup. But Hima knew what that meant. As Kakarot was sleeping off that shock, Hima tried to convince Gero not to do what she feared he would do. Gero, please, this child poses no threat. Why are you acting like there's some kind of freak? Gero turned to her and scowled. Because this is a freak of nature. From outer space. Do you have any idea what that transporter and that alien could mean for the advancement of science? The formula alone could revolutionize personal transportation. And the creature? Well, the possibilities are endless. What do you mean? I took a blood sample from it just now, before you got here to interrupt me. And it turns out that it is indeed not from this world. The metabolic responses from the tests are nothing like I've seen before. Meaning? Well, isn't it obvious? We must put this alien to more tests. We need to understand everything about it. Hima looked sternly back at the doctor. So you're gonna poke and prod this infant for the rest of their life? Gero scowled back. Don't be so dramatic, woman. The thing is unaccompanied. No one will miss it. There's no reason to fret. Nothing bad will come of this. I know you're sore that I sent Gabo off to boarding school, so don't transpose your feelings onto this. You did that without telling me, by the way, interjected Hima. But you need to understand that your petty grudges must not get in the way of our mission to innovate, accelerate mankind, ensure the army's success for years to come. Do not let your emotions get in the way. Hima countered. Oh, really? Sounds like your emotions are doing just that, Doctor. Those of greed, mania, and obsession. Gero clenched his fist. State your business or be gone from my sight. Hima was about to tell him, but faltered. She merely turned to Kakarot and walked out, determined to ensure that Gero would not torment this child any longer. She had to do some thinking. Now, part of what Gero said was true. His idea of bettering humanity was a noble idea, something for all scientists to strive for, but sadly, his mania, drive, and slight insanity had gotten the better of him. Not to mention his old age, it had started to foul his brain up somewhat. He had become set in his ways, very narrow-minded. But anyway, Hima was determined to save the child's life as best as she could. Initially, it was hard. Gero would spend many days running test after test on the infant, in a sterile clinical room, unmoved by his meek cries for food, water, and affection. Gero was unfazed though. Since this creature wasn't from this world, he had no attachment to it whatsoever. It was as good as an animal. He didn't even see the parallels toward this babe in Gebo, his own son. Nope. He was able to remove himself completely in the pursuit of its experiments. When all was said and done for the day, Hima would be left to clean up and be the mother that Kakarot needed. She didn't give him a name though at the time, to ease the pain should Gero tire of the infant. However, that didn't mean she wouldn't be any less affectionate. She would feed, clothe, and comfort the child. And even though the first few weeks were rough, Kakarot then grew to associate Hima with safety. Sure, he would kick up a stink some days, naturally, but Hima would have the patience to persevere. That patience paid off. Once Kakarot had fallen asleep and Hima had gotten the idea and retired for the night, she would then conduct her own research, figuring out a just means to ensure that the boy could live a much more reasonable existence. Once she had done so, she would send it off to Commander Red for further study and consultation. She sent it off quietly, not telling any of her colleagues, not even the ones she trusted, in case it got back to Gero, and he may take drastic measures. The day came not long after she sent it off, where things would get better for her and the baby. Commander Red demanded an audience with Gero and the boy. He just turned up unannounced. Red examined the child, who had been cleverly sedated by Hima, all to prevent any random lashings out. For his own good, of course. It wasn't too strong. Red was very coy with his reason for being there, to which this ultimately led to Gero becoming impatient. Might I inquire as to why you've interrupted my studies? Commander, Red whipped around and gave the doctor a nasty glare. You're not paid to question my actions, Doctor! I wish to check this kid out personally! What is your end goal with them then?
Once my studies have concluded, I will have it cut up and run more granular tests on it. Not if I have to say anything about that! You're to cease your line of experiments now! I've got a better idea for the kid!
Gero was floored.
What? Hema! Come here! You really think this one could be the ultimate super soldier?
Hema nodded. Indeed. Upon my own close examinations, the boy's cognitive and kinetic responses are far greater than any human infant his age. To expire this child or subject it to questionable practices will be most unwise. You saw my report, Commander. It's clear as day. Commander Red nodded with pride.
Yes, quite right. Super soldiers are a handy tool. Heck, even a mascot for the company. Hema, you get your wish. Staff Officer Black, take the child to its new quarters. We gotta make sure our new champion is properly tended to.
Red walked out, whilst Black took the sedated Kakarot away to be housed elsewhere. Once the door had been closed, Gero tore into Hema.
How dare you! You dare to undermine my authority and findings! I told you to spare human emotions in the pursuit of science!
Hema pushed back. I couldn't! You'd be squandering something truly remarkable! That child is not a lab rat! I'll make sure he's raised well! Be of use! The commander took a liking to him anyway. Gero stormed over to her and was about to smack her. Careful, she said calmly. You don't want to anger the commander any more than you already have done, do you? Gero lowered his fist after seconds of hesitation. You've got your blood and materials, Doctor. Play with those instead. With that, she was gone, subsequently reassigned to tending to the new Red Ribbon super soldier. As time wore on, Kakarot grew up under Hema's care, but that didn't make his life overly happy or serene. He was still considered a tool in the eyes of Commander Red, but at least he was given plusher quarters, a good diet, and a modicum of respect from the high-ranking Red Ribbon contingent. Gero was left to fester in his lab, the commander paying much less attention to his wants and needs. But that did mean that Gero could maybe work on other things that we may already know. But fortunately for the commander, Kakarot was rather partial to practical training and combat training, like Hema said. She had found a way to make it fun and engaging for him, so his progress was even better. Yes, she was raising possibly the ultimate super soldier to be used for the Red Ribbon's desires, and this might lead to some casualties, but it's not the most noble of causes, but she at least managed to get the child away from a life of being cooped up in a cage or worse, dissected. Now, does Gable get involved? Well, yes, I would say so. Once Gable had graduated from school, he came back to join the army as a soldier himself, something we already know. Hema was very pleased to see him, and introduced Gable to his younger brother. Hema had named the child eventually Jasper, after another type of red crystal, and his progress had been very impressive. With constant training and focus, Jasper had become rather determined and much more stable than he had been under Gero's care. Had he had the bump on the head? No, he was still like a Saiyan, but he had had the loving care of Hema, plus something to do and a goal to strive for, which sort of evened things out. With Gable there now too, he took to being an older brother really well. As Jasper grew, Gable would be teaching him tricks and things to do to make his more detailed combat training all the more effective. The two of them were very much the best of friends, to which Hema was very pleased about. Meanwhile, Gero had been busy making his androids. He had asked to be transferred to the Red Ribbon's facility outside Null City, out in the mountains, not long after Hema had pulled the first one on him. He couldn't bear being anywhere near his failure, the baby, and that foul sneak of a woman. And so, he set to work making the likes of Android 8 and whatnot. With Hema now established as Gero's replacement at the main HQ, she would ensure that anything the army created outside of Gero's stuff was a little more humane. Jasper's first field assignment, actually, was to gather the Dragon Balls. Thanks to Hema's help, they had found out about the Dragon Balls and crafted a Dragon Radar of sorts. It wasn't as good as Bulma's iteration, of course not, but with Jasper and Gable out there working alongside one another, they were able to use the coordinates from base to retrieve the Dragon Balls rather effectively from under Bulma's fingers, cause she's just a girl, and they're two super soldiers. And when Commander Red got wind that the girl of Capsule Corp's boss was in on the mission too, he vowed to use the wish on them not to make himself taller, or at least not this first one, but to do what he said he would do originally, secure world domination. And with these two skilled soldiers, they did it. Pilaf had no answer to these two. And thanks to the additional help of the supporting cast of Red Ribbon operatives, the wish was carried out, thanks to Jasper and Gable's leadership. This meant that the Red Ribbon army was unopposed. They ruled the world, effectively, with Jasper being their main man and figurehead when it came to defending them from any fools who would dare try to oppose them. And this remained the same for many years. That is until Raditz showed up. He does meet his brother Kakarot though, and tries to tell him he is a Saiyan from outer space, but this news is far less effective in throwing Jasper for a loop. I already know I'm an alien, so big whoop. State your business or get lost, freak. Raditz didn't take too kindly to this, or the backup from the army that Jasper had that came their way. He was being backed into a corner, and Raditz doesn't like being backed into a corner. He flew upward and issued forth a double Sunday, which utterly decimated the Red Ribbon army, save for Jasper. Even Gable had been felled by the blast, and Jasper had had enough. He was slightly stronger than Goku was in the original, but that meant that he was still nothing compared to his brother, and with no allies to help him, not even Piccolo Jr., Jasper was a sitting duck. Sad to see his brother rail against him, Raditz promptly blasted him away too. Ashamed to do this, and disappointed, and he would most likely have disappointed his father's wishes, but he wasn't listening to reason, his brother. He gave him plenty of chances too. Well, Raditz better call Frieza and tell him of this planet, he better be doing his job. Apparently, what was left of its main empire seemed of small amusement with the Red Ribbon lot. As for Hema, she barely survived the entire onslaught. When she found out that Jasper had been slain by this monster, she broke down. The entire army had been destroyed. But that was only the beginning. Once Frieza had gotten his hands on the planet, she was one of the last senior figureheads of the army left, and she was their public enemy number one. She had to be found for the sake of Frieza's goals. She had gone into hiding. The only place left of her? North City, the lab of Gero. And Gero? Oh, she had to crawl back to him. Despite the chance to gloat, Gero took her in and had an idea to prevent this alien ruler from taking the planet, and for a chance of her to forgive him. He would need her help, and her body. Expanding upon her plea to Gero for help, the old man was indeed willing to hear Hema out. And despite their disagreements when figuring out Jasper's fate and her backstabbing him with Commander Red in the room, Gero didn't just cast her out and leave her to her doom. Instead, he had a plan involving her, that could send that Frieza force packing. But she was confused though. Why are you doing all this? After I betrayed you and forced you to work
In a cave?
Gero said with mild contempt.
Yes, I was mad with you and the boy for a long time.
Hema's eyes perked slightly. That had been the first time Gero had referred to Jasper as anything other than an object or a thing that you might accidentally step on.
But this self-imposed exile proved to be for the best. I am still here, whereas the Red Ribbon Army as a whole is but a shell of its former self. Now playing nice with that alien freak. You remember my original modus operandi, don't you, Hema?
Hema nodded.
Yes. To usher in a new dawn for humanity. I do not wish for it to be snuffed out. That is why I took precautions. Ones that originally go against my own principles, but I felt were necessary.
Gero walked over to a safe deposit box hidden underneath the tiled floor of his lab and opened it. Hema gasped. You had them? We thought them lost. We hadn't seen them in years.
Gero sighed. I know how to get around their locator, but I am not proud of being this underhanded. But Commander Red would have wasted the wish on something frivolous, no doubt. Or in a manner that would have proved utterly useless in any cause.
Hema looked angry, though, instead of pleased. You had them? Locked away in a box? When they could have been used to help the planet? Are you insane? What good is this gonna do us, huh? Earth is already subjugated!
Would you shut up and listen to me, woman?
Hema did so and recoiled. There was the old curmudgeon again. Gero continued, clearing his throat.
I have been watching you. You and Jasper.
Hema was even more shocked. Now he called him by name.
I was wrong to view him as nothing but a specimen. Even though the commander over-egged his value, he did prove to be effective in the end, and did indeed prosper as his own person. It saddened me when I watched him burn at that alien's hand.
You watched it? How? Gero turned on the monitor, which was broadcasting a live feed of Frieza's minions scouring the planet, Zarbon and Dodoria making a little cameo in it, who were busy overseeing the grunts ferrying humans to camps.
Drones, you see. Smaller than most insects, and disguised like them too. Ever since I was cast out here, I made them to keep abreast of what the army was up to, and for the purpose of collecting information for my own projects.
Hema looked sternly at the doctor. Great. In your paranoid state, you made some bugs to spy on people and hoarded Earth's greatest treasure for yourself. What's your point?
My point is, Hema, I wish to use them to bring back Jasper.
What? Bring him back? Can they do that? Hema blinked in awe at the balls.
I don't see why not. It's worth a try anyway.
Hema's eyes were shimmering with tears now. You do that for me? What about Gebo? Might it work on him too?
Gero blushed. Yes, we could try and bring him back too.
Hema smiled. Gero, I know how hard this must be for you to say and do. Thank you. It means a lot.
Gero scoffed but smiled back. Think me not a callous old fool, Hema. Now let's get this done.
With that, the pair took to the elevator to the top of the lab, which spat them out onto the peak of some cliffs. They placed the Dragon Balls on the ground and summoned Shenron. The sky turned black. But the Frieza Force didn't come after them. They had no ideas of the Dragon Balls yet, you see, since Jasper never mentioned them to Raditz, and they never found out about them hence. The dragon loomed over them and asked for their wish.
You do the honors, Hema. Bring back our boys.
Hema was absolutely wrought with emotion right now, but did as she was told, and the dragon carried out the wish. Instantly, both Jasper and Gebo appeared before them, underneath the light of the dragon. The dragon bade them farewell, and the balls scattered around the world, the sky returning to its typical shade of blue. The two men approached Gero and Hema. Jasper was astonished. How am I here? That alien freak wasted me and... He spotted Gero and flinched. Despite being far more powerful and taller than the old man, he feared that same person for how he was treated back as an infant. He could remember those times when he was viewed as an experiment, and it brought him so much pain. Gebo put a hand on his brother's shoulder.
It's okay, Jasper.
They then spotted Hema and the younger relaxed. The three of them then embraced, and Hema was so thrilled to see her two sons alive again, thanking the dragon for its bountiful gift. But then it dawned on her. Wait, will the Dragon Balls fall into the hands of the Frieza Force? They controlled Red Ribbon's facilities and in turn, the Dragon Ball locator.
That is true. But for now, we have ignorance on our side, as well as time. They do not know how to work it, what it is, and what it can be used for, but that won't last. We have about 1 year or so before the balls return to life and are trackable. We must get to work. Jasper, come here, boy.
Jasper was nervous, but approached the doctor. The doctor outstretched his hand.
I am deeply regretful of my actions when you were but a child. I hope we can look past this and work together from now on.
Jasper was still hesitant, but looked to his mother and saw her nod, as in to trust him. Jasper then tentatively shook Gero's hand. Gero smiled, but then put his game face back on.
What has happened, Mother? Why are we here?
Hema then informed her sons about what had gone down since Raditz arrived on Earth and wasted them, and how things had since fallen apart, how the army fell to pieces. We're the only ones left not under the thumb of Frieza. It's up to us now to stop Earth from being swallowed up by his filthy organization, she said with the most serious of tones. Gero then stepped in and posed his side of the plan, to transform the three of them into cybernetic warriors, augmented with his technology, what he had been working on, that could perhaps win over the likes of Frieza.
I have watched you all from the shadows, and whilst it's too late for me, I feel that the three of you might be worthy holders of the fruits of my labors. Are you willing to take the risk? It won't be a painless experience, but it should provide you the tools needed to stop that madman.
Gebo and Jasper looked to each other and agreed. Hema too elected to go with the plan. Gero knew that she was a hardy woman. She would fight alongside her children. After all, she fought for their lives before. What would stop her now?
Nothing, that's what.
With them retreating back into the depths of the lab, the preparations began. With the intel gathered by Gero's drones, them having been left unseen thanks to their small and inconspicuous nature, the operations began to convert Hima, Jasper and Gebo into cyborgs, artificial humans. The conversion took months. The trio's minds were placed in a stasis-like state whilst their bodies were being worked on. Gero watched over them throughout that entire time, alone. He never stopped. He never tired. He was determined to make this trio the greatest creations he had ever produced. He would make sure Earth would once again be free, and that they may prosper under his technological prowess. 1 year later, whilst Gero was conducting tests on Jasper's new arms, he heard a voice in his head.
Hello, Gero. I come in peace.
Gero fell off his chair and thought that he had gone mad with the precious and arduous nature of the task.
What is the meaning of this? Show yourself!
I cannot. I am but a voice to you now, but I wish to contact you. You see, I am the guardian of this planet.
It was Kami, but Gero regained his rationale and scoffed.
Guardian? Some guardian you are if you left this planet to its doom.
Kami sighed.
Alas, you are right. There was little I could do at the hands of Frieza and his men. I am only grateful that they had yet to find where I am located. But that is beside the point. I wish to provide assistance. There is a chamber here that could help you with your experiments.
Not interested,
said Gero with the tersest of responses.
I've done everything myself up to this point, and I do not need the help of a failed deity who may as well be a figment of my imagination.
Who do you think created the Dragon Balls?
Said Kami with a stern rebuttal. Gero paused. That got his attention. This thing knew about the Dragon Balls.
That is not the only reason I have contacted you. I am here to warn you that the Dragon Balls are active once more, and the Force has figured out what your locator can do. We are running out of time.
Gero had to process this and make a decision. It was now or never. He had to wake them up.
Fine. Where are you located?
Kami projected the locale of his abode into the doctor's mind. It was time to act. Not long after that, Gero began the procedure to wake up his new cyborg family. He had placed them in the pods that we are accustomed to, which would help them awaken and start it all. After an hour, the pods hissed open, and out stepped, fully mobile, Jasper, Gebo, and Hima. At first, they felt nothing different, that nothing had happened to them, but Jasper looked to his arm. It was covered in small sensors. Gebo then noticed his wrists had lines around them, his rocket punch. And Hima felt her head, and it was a lot heavier than before, like her brain had been enhanced or something. They were now more machine than man, but they could recall the reason why they did this and were focused. Gero asked them if all was well with them, and they replied that nothing amiss seemed to be occurring.
Good. You're going to go on a little excursion to this location.
He pinged the location into their craniums, and it was the lookout.
A fellow called Kami will greet you there and provide you aid.
Hima blinked. Aren't you coming with us?
Certainly not. What good would I be? Besides, I prefer to remain here, as I have before. If things should go wrong, I must be able to regroup and rebuild. Try again.
Gebo was nervous.
Go wrong? You mean this could go wrong? Of course it can, boy. No experiment is 100% reliable. Now go! Frieza's forces are in the knowledge of the Dragon Ball locator. There's little time to chit-chat.
Hima vowed to not let Gero down, and the three of them set off for the heavens. Fortunately for them, since they were now based around android technology, the scoundrels of the Frieza Force couldn't locate them or sense them. But they had internal radar so they could track them. By being able to dart around the scouts, they flew under their own power, which took them some getting used to, and arrived on the lookout. Kami welcomed them and told them of the Room of Spirit and Time, a place where they could acclimatize to their new figures.
The doctor told me of how you operate. I have undertaken measures to ensure all three of you can go inside at the same time, but you will only have 6 months instead of my ideal 12 months. Make use of it.
The three of them agreed, and went inside to adjust to their new tech. 12 hours, or 6 months for them. That's what they had left to save the world. 12 hours after the three of them had entered the Room of Spirit and Time, they exited, Their clothes were in tatters. They looked extremely worn out, but they'd done it. Kami welcomed them back from the room, and he then told them that they could go back in again. They had about 18 months worth of credit left if they wanted to do more, but all three of them gave that idea a hard pass. 6 months in there is enough, old man, said Jasper with a huge sigh of exhaustion. And despite their infinity engines, provided by the good doctor, they would still get tired, or at least their human brains, or what's left of them, would get tired. It turned out to be psychosomatic. Their actual energy levels hadn't really gone down all that much as they had thought. Mind over matter. This was part of the change that was going to be hard getting used to. But the training had proved useful. Hima thanked Kami for the kind offer of help. Without this, we probably might have done something foolish whilst trying to save the world so desperately. Kami nodded, but still looked seriously back at all of them.
We are not done yet. You must go and find the Dragon Balls, or better yet, stop Frieza's men finding them first. Then we may be able to breathe a little easier.
Kami walked closer to Hima so that Jasper and Gero couldn't hear.
Does Dr. Gero seek to conquer the world for himself? You can be honest with me.
Not exactly. Gero may have been a bitter old gent, but his heart was in the right place. He didn't wish to bring humanity under his will, but by using his intellect and technology to help propel it into a new age of innovation and prosperity. He wants the world to evolve and improve. It's just that sometimes his impulses get the better of him, and certain things get in the way, which muddy that aspiration into something completely maniacal.
Kami closed his eyes and mused this thought.
I see. Well, he then smiled. Sounds better than what Frieza usually has in store for worlds. Now go.
With that, Hima called for his sons to head for the old Red Ribbon Army HQ, which was currently being used as a base of operations for Frieza's henchmen. Again, thanks to their stealth-like energy outputs, they were not tracked by the group, and instead, they managed to get to the base in just about half an hour. And despite the Frieza Force taking over said base, they had not really gotten around to resetting the bioscan recognition facilities, which allowed entry. So basically, they added their own data, but they didn't delete the old stuff. The Frieza Force were basically just squatting there and now far too obsessed with that Dragon Ball locator to notice. The three of them took nearby lab coats with the hastily added Frieza Force logo on them and began to wander the corridors. The room was a hive of activity, which helped them out since it was so busy, nobody would notice new people entering the chamber. The Dragon Ball locator that the Red Ribbon Army had wasn't exactly mobile, and absolutely nothing like Bulma's Dragon Radar, so coordinates had to be relayed to their respective search parties, and they would go find the balls. Hima knew that the best thing to do to prevent anyone from seeking these balls again was to destroy this locator.
But Mother, said Gero, won't that mean we can't find them ourselves to fix things when all of this is over?
These orbs were originally legendary. It's probably best they go back to being said legend.
The three of them agreed, and Hima began the push by casually walking over to one of the technicians who had just started working there. Hima asked them some random scientific question, and the newbie was giving their answer. But then, a regular clocked Hima and shouted,
Hey! That's a woman we've been looking for! Get her!
The room rounded on Hima, but she wasn't scared in the slightest. When she gave the signal, Jasper and Gero leapt out and began to eviscerate the entire room, and then proceed to demolish the Dragon Ball locator. Woof, that was quick. Eva hadn't used her powers in anger before. Training in the time chamber was one thing, but to use it in the field, to kill people, was both thrilling and disturbing. It was a lot to take in, but Gero comforted his mother.
I know it's hard, but I can tell you from experience that this is for the greater good, Mother. It's not ideal, but this is the way.
Hima looked somberly down at the being she had just expired, but then to her son and nodded.
Yes. It doesn't make it easy, though.
However, there was now the matter of seeking those who already had said locations and were heading for them. The race was on to find them, but Jasper was getting impatient.
I want to find that so-called brother of mine. That ratted scum.
He clenched his fist.
And thanks to the radar, we know where he is.
Gero tried to calm his brother down and remind him of the mission. It was best not to attract attention, but Jasper rebuffed that. I think we already attracted enough attention by taking out their main beacon. Hema and Gabriel looked at the broken remains of the locator and, well, they had to admit Jasper had a point. Fortunately for Jasper, Raditz was one of the beings in the pursuit of a Dragon Ball. By the time Raditz had coined that something was wrong back at the Red Ribbon HQ base where the Dragon Ball locator was, Jasper was already on him, in front of his face. Raditz was surprised, to say the least.
Kakarot! But you...
Killed me, said Jasper with a cold tone. No, brother. You did more than that. You opened my eyes to the greatest power imaginable. I should thank you, but... punched Raditz. I don't like low-life sneaks. He then proceeded to beat Raditz into a pulp, all before offering him the chance to live for the information as to where Frieza was right now. Raditz was spouting off lines like,
I would never, and as if I'd betray my...
But Jasper could sense Raditz's fear.
You're nothing but a coward, Raditz. If you tell us where he is, I'll let you go. Promise.
Raditz took his scouter off and sighed, before dropping it to the ground below. He told them everything.
I suppose you're going to kill me now anyway, right?
Said Raditz, accepting his presumed fate, but Jasper shook his head.
No. Unlike you, I assume dignity.
Get out of here.
Start anew. But if I see you again, I will kill you. You got it? You are no brother of mine.
Raditz spluttered a thank you before skedaddling out of there. Gabo and Hema watched on with awe. How Jasper conducted himself. Jasper smiled.
You're my bro, Gabo. Then let's go after that Frieza.
They looked up to the sky and to the spaceship that Frieza was using to oversee his conquest of Earth. Now, question. Can androids survive in space? I think so, since they're now more cyborg, so we're going to go with that. And besides, the Infinity engines should be enough to power them and sustain their biological needs whilst up there. Anyway, up in said space, Frieza was starting to get a little impatient. His team had almost gathered the Dragon Balls, but the locator base had gone offline for some reason. So that means clarification couldn't be sought.
Today's simply not my day, is it?
Grumbled Frieza. It was going to get worse, as 3 massive streams of energy just tore through his ship. Without warning, the ship had been caught unawares by the trifecta of beams from Jasper, Gabo, and Hema below. Them not expecting such an attack from a planet that hadn't even tackled the likes of space travel yet. Surely there couldn't have been anything capable of wrecking their own mothership, right? Wrong. The crew of the ship was scurrying around trying to fix the damage, but it was too much. And also not helped by another set of beams adding even more damage. Jasper smirked as he could see the ship collapsing under the strain of the attacks, and seconds later, it exploded atop of them. But Gebo wasn't moved. This isn't over. This is too easy. Sure enough, he was right. From out of the devastation, Frieza, in its first form, emerged. He had a look of both surprise and anger on his face.
Well, I'll be, he shouted at the 3. In all my years of galactic domination, I can say with no doubt that that was the most bombastic of greetings that any freedom fighter has bestowed upon me. Now tell me, in what manner would you like to die then? Quickly? Slowly? It makes no difference to me. I'll enjoy it all the same.
Jasper cracked his knuckles.
Right back at ya, Frieza.
Frieza then looked at Jasper more closely. He remembered a Saiyan that looked like him doing something similar back on planet Vegeta, trying to play the hero. Was this person related to him, perhaps? Then he remembered Raditz's initial report.
Oh, you were the Saiyan that Raditz wanted to bring back to my force originally. All right, let me conduct a personal review of you then. Are you ready?
Frieza wasn't expecting the onslaught that was about to head his way. With Gero's drones capturing the intel from Jasper's development, then Raditz's arrival, and the subsequent conquering of Frieza and his powerful men of Earth, the power of the trio now is pretty much similar to Androids 17 and 18 from the original at this point. Perhaps even stronger. And now couple that with the additional 6 months in the Room of Spirit and Time? Well, I think you know where this is going to go. Frieza had no answer to this. Not even his patented Death Ball technique could work. Hema just used her ki absorption technique, thanks Gero, to swallow up the energy and use it to blast it back in Frieza's direction. Naturally, Frieza was able to dodge this, but he was certainly getting very unsettled at the fact that all this energy could be absorbed so easily and then expelled with little effort. Where was this in the report?
Perhaps I underestimated the technology of this planet. No matter. Allow me to reward you with something I rarely show off to others.
As you could tell, he showed off his transformation skill. But all these forms yielded the same result. Not even his final form could do much against all three of them. Hema then managed to get the jump on Frieza as he was busy with Jasper and grabbed the tyrant from behind and covered his mouth. Frieza was trying to wriggle himself out of her grip, but he could feel his life force being depleted somehow. With every second, he could resist less and less, and Hema's grip was only getting stronger, thanks to his own energy being used against him. Soon enough, Frieza had to revert back to his first form, so that means he wouldn't pass out. He was powerless now. The three androids loomed over him and he tried to beg for mercy. Now, despite these three doing the galaxy a huge favour, these three weren't about to be freedom fighters for other worlds. But Gero had an idea, to send a message out there to those that dare challenge Earth in the future. Hema liked this. Soon, a galactic-wide message was broadcast, using Frieza's existing systems that had been installed on Earth up to now. What was in the message? Frieza, looking battered and bruised, hardly a regal figure, telling all Frieza Force troops to avoid Earth, that he had made a huge mistake, and that he would never return. So say the Emperor. Earth was effectively a no-fly zone. Gable and Hema thought this was a more effective idea. Granted, it would have been easier to go with Jasper's plan originally and just kill him right there, but more folks from space might come and seek revenge for Frieza. Here though, this was more by the book, and Frieza could live with the fear of Earth in his mind forever. When they sent him away, the Emperor tried one last gasp to destroy them, but got put in his place again by Gabo.
Remember our agreement, Frieza.
With that, Frieza and his remaining troops fled the planet, never to be seen again. The people of Earth were eternally grateful for the trio's help, but none of them wished to bask in the adulation. They had done their duty and saved the planet, but they would now go back to debrief with Gero instead of, signing autographs. But Jasper's already lingering following from before Raditz showing up simply consolidated the notion that he was the saviour of Earth, despite working for an organisation that originally wanted to take over the world through nefarious and hostile means. But with the right marketing efforts and propaganda, that can work wonders on an unsuspecting general populace. This time though, Jasper had gotten the adulation through genuine good deeds. Battering the Emperor of the Galaxy is a good means of doing so. When they regrouped with Gero, the Doctor was impressed with their efforts, but didn't wish to bask in the glory that they had accomplished. The Doctor would rather stick to the shadows and continue with his research and development, upgrading them constantly.
Hema, Jasper, Gabo, I think you would do a better job of being the face of the new Red Ribbon Army than I would be. My mug isn't conducive to good publicity. I think it's best you take the wheel.
Hema wasn't surprised at this, but accepted the proposal. Hema became the new director of the Red Ribbon Army, and Jasper resumed his status as the poster boy of said outfit. Gabo resumed his colourful title role as General Gold, taking care of the General Force, whereas Hema became the new Commander Red. Now, does Earth come under threat from Frieza again? Well, short answer is no. That broadcast message did Frieza the world of hurt in terms of his general credibility. Frieza? Brought to shame? Wow. Pretty much every single part of the galaxy took that seriously, and then made fun of him. Even his father had a jibe at him. Frieza had personally warned him not to try anything either. It was already a greater issue that they had to deal with internal rumblings of regime changes, let alone that world. It wasn't a priority. Let it remain in its corner of space. Fine. They had other problems to attend to anyway. Also, since the Red Ribbon Army were responsible for the Cell Saga basically coming to be, and this time they saved it, there's no Android 17, 18, or Cell. Lapis, Lazuli, they're still regular people. Over time, the quartet that now drove the Red Ribbon Army forged their organisation into a company and force that was seen more as a force of good and not about the rule the world through tyranny type of thing and over-the-top schemes. They could have rebuilt the Dragon Ball locator too, but they chose not to. After all, the Dragon Balls had proved to be useful in bringing back Jasper and Gabo, but that level of power
to bring people back from the dead was far too risky and tempting to rely on. Capsule Corp had their own dragon radar, thanks to Bomber and the like, and they did try to gather the dragon a couple of times. But Jasper was on them, quick to put a stop to it when he could see the sky turn black. It didn't help Capsule Corp that they kept bringing the balls back to their base, like they do in the show. It made things easier for Jasper to find them and halt it. He didn't stop them with force though, but he used his ways to ensure them that whatever wish they did make was for more selfless and altruistic purposes. Now when it comes to Barbary and Deborah a few years later, what happens there? Well, Frieza's message does get to them in a manner of speaking, and they do come to Earth to try their luck and free Majin Buu perhaps, but the thing about that is that with Jasper, Gable and Hima's power being mostly derived from the Infinity Engine and not Ki, the energy they have is not compatible with the energy absorption device that Barbary had created. He hadn't expected to be fighting machines that looked so human-like and were that strong. In any case, when Deborah and Barbary had to face off against them, they fared badly. Jasper had been spotted as the strongest of the three, and when they tried to take his energy, it didn't work. Since Frieza, it hadn't helped that the three of them had been upgraded and now were even stronger. And now with Deborah's presence here and the drones continuing their observation, Gero had now plenty of info about Demon Kings and their power to make even further upgrades. In short, Barbary's plan fails. Deborah gets wasted by the trio, and Buu remains in his sealed ball. And when Shin and Kibito get there to provide aid, thinking that they were about to be overwhelmed by Majin Buu, to find that it had already been taken care of, they get to taking the sealed ball away from Earth and placing it far away from the mortal realm and the sacred world of the Kais. Shin didn't find these three as hospitable as the original Dragon team, but he was still grateful that they shared a common goal in keeping things in order here. Beerus Masako? Well, no. Jasper's power isn't as obvious to Whis since his energy is mostly derived from technology, and thusly, it doesn't capture his attention to wake Beerus up, and thusly, the cat remains asleep for the next few centuries or so, and in turn, will be far less cranky. I think everyone will like that. And as for Earth, this time of peace is quite refreshing. Since Jasper, Gable and Hima are now basically artificial humans, or Jasper's case a Saiyan, their lifespans are now practically infinite. Or at least they don't age nearly as fast as regular humans do. Which isn't what could be said for Gero. As for Hima, she remained the steadfast leader of the Red Ribbon Army for many decades, with her two sons by her side. Jasper, the bastion of the group and the champion of Earth, and Gable, the steadfast and more modest captain of the guard. Despite his android powers, he still desired to lead his men into battle like he was a regular human. His troops may grow old and he would see new ones come in, but the men looked to Gable as a constant, and he liked that idea. It gave them comfort. As Gero aged, though, he sought to place his mind in a supercomputer so that his mind may continue to innovate humanity long after his organic body had died. It was surreal in a way to see yourself pass, but yes, I think that could wrap things up. Had Android 21 raised Goku, and I heeded your excellent advice folks, it could lead to Gero realizing his desire to innovate humanity, Hima raising Kakarot, now Jasper, with more civility, and Earth genuinely being led by a now reformed Red Ribbon Army, far less power mad and far more virtuous. Earth is a place of safety now, and with Hima leading the effort, the planet will continue to dominate in technology, security, and prosperity. And that's where we end things. If you want to make a continuation of this story, please do so and share it with me. Maybe we might showcase some of the best on the channel in an epilogue perhaps. But what did you folks think overall? Did you feel this was a good way to go about things? Would you add some more details to it? You could also perhaps check out the Boxer What If, where an alternate landing location of the young Kakarot emerged. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!